Apple even decided to do it to transition all of their manufacturing over to America. And again, that iPhone and those Apple products would increase by 30 to 60%, depending upon the cost for labor.
We have a company like Apple who's currently on the ropes, right? I mean, Apple is on the ropes right now. They totally blew it with AI and the rollout of AI. They have no strong AI presence. They're getting killed by OpenAI. They're getting killed by Anthropic. They're getting killed by Meta. They're getting killed by Google. They're getting killed by everybody. Sure. Everybody's killing them, right? Mm-hmm. And they ought to be ahead of the game. Apple is always late to a show, right? They're always late to a market or emerging market. They're going to watch and they're going to see what's going to happen.
Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
I guess the segue to the next segment is paying for this food that comes in from different parts of the world has to deal with tariffs. And so we've talked a little bit about tariffs before. And, we talked about the fact that there's a lot of changes that are taking place. And so on August 7th, 2025, the U.S. imposed these sweeping tariffs that range from about 15% to about 50% on imports from over 90 countries. And so one of those places is India, where they're doing 50% tariff on Indian goods. And because of their oil ties to Russia and things like that. So that's part of the conversation. And so markets have been responding in different ways. So like you had the NASDAQ that went up and had a nice week last week. And, you've got proponents saying that it's great. You have opponents that saying it's the most terrible thing. Where do you stand right now?
Here's my biggest like this for tariffs. Okay. This is what makes me so happy. Apple just announced over 4 years, $600 billion reinvestment in the United States. Immediately $100 billion because of this. So to me, in my mind, I'm thinking one of America's crown jewels, right? I mean, this is Apple we're talking about here. Tim Cook in the White House meeting has just pledged $600 billion over 4 years to remanufacture in the United States, to create a supply chain in America. And immediately they're putting $100 billion into America right now. That to me is probably the biggest win, I think, for America, to have a company like Apple come back and say, okay, we're going to play ball here again, and let's figure out how to do this in America. And they're doing it, and they're figuring it out. That's a lot of reinvestment of capital. That's a lot of working capital to go back in the United States. The amount of jobs, the amount of infrastructure, the amount of taxes, the amount of sheer collateral effect that's going to happen as a result of that is just astounding. And I think that's a big win. And I think that's like we should be talking more about that. Now, the India thing, yes, I understand that, but job creation, look, Trump is doing the, what is it? It's, make it an America exemption. So, for example, he'll give you the buy or they'll reduce the tariffs or something like that if you're making it America. So, I think it's moving in the right direction. I understand there's going to be some temporary pain, there's going to be some temporary setbacks, but we have to do something because we can't. What's working before is not working, and this is the only next logical step is to create another revenue source to offset somewhere. But to force these companies to back up and reinvest and figure out, put their thinking caps on to figure out how you could do it. Because I just can't believe as an entrepreneur and any other entrepreneur in the world can sit back and say, like, no entrepreneur in the world, if you are really an entrepreneur, you'll never say there's just no way to do it. That goes against everything in an entrepreneur's language or mindset. An entrepreneur never says you can't do it. An entrepreneur says, how can I do it? And let me figure out a way, because that entrepreneur knows that if you figure out how to solve that problem, you're going to make a lot of money, and you're going to make a lot of prosperity for people. So I think this is entrepreneurial spirit in work, and this is exactly what this is, and this is forcing big companies. And all we need is that domino. One big company does it. Watch. I think there's going to see a lot of other companies. You're right. The market's bumped up. You're going to see a lot of companies follow suit, and I'm just excited that Apple made that move, and I think that is proof in the pudding.
So I think that, okay, when you look at tariffs as a whole, you can certainly make the argument that a tariff is a tax. And if you didn't watch the last episode, I went through that a lot. So go watch episode 3. I won't belabor that point. I do agree that one instance of a company making investments here on US soil is good, but I think that's anecdotal. And I think to use one anecdotal reference to suggest that tariffs are good is kind of like saying, hey, I did it, so everybody else should be able to do it too. Well, there are certain extenuating circumstances that make my situation different than yours. And so Apple, being a $1 trillion company and having the ability to take its resources and redistribute them sounds great. But if you think about it, if you're talking about 600 billion, 500 billion of it, they were already starting to earmark it because they saw the writing on the wall, and they were already starting to transition their work from China over to India, but they realized that there were some logistical challenges with that and all of those things. Okay. So we understand that. But for Apple to drop in the bucket now, it's a good drop in the bucket, which is cool. But the reality is that it's going to take at least 5 years, if Apple even decided to do it, to transition all of their manufacturing over to America. And again, that iPhone and those Apple products would increase by 30 to 60%, depending upon the cost for labor. So yeah, it's cool, but the only reason why Apple did it is because of the exemption. They didn't do it because of the tariff. And that's a really important distinction, is that the tariff made Tim Cook decide to have a conversation with Trump. Trump decided to create an exemption to say, okay, we're not going to charge you on this particular part of the manufacturing process because you're doing that here in America. So yes, I would be disingenuous to say that any extra manufacturing that brings jobs and all of those things are, if I were to say that they're not good, I'm not being intellectually honest. So that is a good thing. But that does not mean that tariffs, that's proof in the pudding that tariffs are a good thing, because for the average person, Apple can eat up that 500 billion and take off a sliver of the profit because they can just distribute it somewhere else. They're a behemoth like that. Most companies and most countries that are having to export goods, they won't have that same luxury. And that's really the concern that I have on the larger scale of things with this conversation.
I can see you on that. At the same time, though, I can't ignore $100 billion and a $600 billion investment. And here's the thing.
Neither can I. I agree.
This is also, I think, and here's the U.S. partnerships. The U.S. partnerships that are collaborations, which this directly affects, are Corning, which makes the glass, Global Wafers, Texas Instruments, Broadcom, Applied Materials, and a lot more. So you see these other companies that are going, oh, wait a minute, Apple's moving now. We're going to have to move.
Those companies, yes. just to be fair, those companies have a partnership with Apple, and so Apple will be working with them to do that. So they're incentivized by the exemption. They're not doing it just because they believe Made in America is better. It's because they have an exemption, so it's not going to impact their bottom line.
To me, I don't really care. To me, I just care that it's action. Whether they're doing it for the right, wrong, or right reason. Yes, are they doing it because they got an exemption? That's not the right thing, but it's effective. It's getting them to actually do it, right? It's getting them to move, right? So to me, I'm like, dude, $100 billion is $100 billion, Len. I mean, that's a lot of freaking money. $600 billion is a lot, and that's advanced R&D. What I think you're going to do here, and what I'm hoping this does, and I think this is what maybe Trump and his team is thinking, is that, okay, cool, we got one, let's get another. And it's just going to domino effect. I'm sure there's a lot of them happening. To me, I want to see that renaissance in America, and I think that you could do it. I don't think that that's not a possibility. I don't think it's not possible. I think it's possible. I think that this can happen. I think America is in such a great position in that we don't really need any other country agriculturally. We really could probably find all materials we need here. I mean, maybe there's some rare earth minerals here and there, but we really haven't gotten in a program where we actually have started investing in finding what our actual materials or our natural resources here are in America. Again, we've had so many years of administrations that have restricted, exploration, specifically in oil and gas. So I just think that if we have a company like Apple, and I know this might be a little bit of a side point, but we have a company like Apple who's currently on the ropes, right? I mean, Apple is on the ropes right now. They totally blew it with AI and the rollout of AI. They have no strong AI presence. They're getting killed by OpenAI. They're getting killed by Anthropic. They're getting killed by Meta. They're getting killed by Google. They're getting killed by everybody. Sure. Everybody's killing them, right? Mm-hmm. And they ought to be ahead of the game, right? I mean, here's one thing I can tell you. I used AI, built-in AI on an Android phone recently versus my iPhone, and it's absolutely abysmal. Like, this thing should be doing so many things for me that it doesn't do. And it's like, for example, this engineer is like, why can't the AI in this phone understand all the toggles? Like, I should be able to tell my iPhone I want it to do certain things, and it should do the settings for me, and it doesn't. And you can do that on other devices, right? And you can't do it, right? But what I think is going to happen here, and I could be dead wrong, but just history repeats itself a lot. Apple is always late to a show, right? They're always late to a market or emerging market. They're going to watch and they're going to see what's going to happen. And it's been very successful. Once
Steve Jobs left, yes, that's for sure.
Look, I mean, Tim Cook is a great executive.
He's a great operator. He is phenomenal.
Like if you read E-Myth, right? You understand over 1,000% growth. Like, he's in the same category as Steve Ballmer. Which, by the way, Steve Ballmer is now more wealthier than Bill Gates, and he didn't have stock options in Microsoft. Brilliant executive, right? Sure. Brilliant. You look at what I can't remember his name, it's escaping me, but you look at the current CEO of Microsoft's doing. Brilliant what they're doing right now at Microsoft. I would not count them out. I think Apple, yes, is on the ropes, but I think what this is going to allow Apple to do is, who knows if Apple pivots into a whole different industry coming back into America, and they go, here you go, guys, and they can create this completely new thing as a result of reinvesting $600 or $100 billion in American R&D work. Don't be surprised when Apple comes out with the next biggest thing because they decided to pledge back into America. I'm just saying, reciprocation is big, and I think Apple is going to do something extremely huge here just by doing that reinvestment, because they're going to find a new industry. Because what Apple does is they do that, and they're going to find a new way, and they're going to completely turn industries upside down again. Just when everybody starts to get comfortable and go, oh, we got it, because of this pledge.
Okay, so I definitely align with your thinking about Apple. Okay, when we talk about tariffs, because that's the topic of our conversation, tariffs really have more to do with other countries doing trade with America as opposed to American companies being multinational in their outsourcing of their labor and their manufacturing. So when you look at earlier, you mentioned about agriculture and different resources that we have here in America. If we only relied on American goods and services based on the amount of consumption that we currently have, the only way that we would be able to just bring back everything internally and just, using an extreme example, shutting off the world and just maximizing on the resources, we'd have to significantly decrease our lifestyle. And so, for example, right now, you can eat oranges any time of the year because there is no in season, because we import oranges from all around the world. All of our fruit comes from different parts of the world, whereas harvest in America is a different month than harvesting in Mexico and in Guatemala. If we want the best coffee in the world, it doesn't grow here in America because of the climate. We don't have places that are tropical like we do in Northern Africa, like Ethiopia and stuff like that. And so when you look at the world scene and the different products, you talked about rare earth minerals. There's no Tesla if there's no places in Africa and in South America where they import the lithium from in the different rare earth minerals. And that's one of the reasons why Trump wanted to have conversations with Zelensky, because they have a lot of rare earth minerals that the United States doesn't have in the type of quantities that fit our consumption. And in many cases,
that deal, right?
He did. He did. And so a lot of the rare earth mineral deals is because we can take those rare earth minerals and process them and turn them into a good that we can export. And so when you talk about increasing tariffs, it really curtails the other country's ability to produce goods to bring them here, because ultimately, as I mentioned before, it's a tax that gets passed on to the consumer. And so if it costs the country so much to get their products into the United States as it is, it's going to hurt them and it's ultimately going to hurt us. So yes, a company like Apple, who has their resources in all different parts of the world, that's nothing. And it makes them look good and it's great PR. And so they were brilliant to do that. But it's nothing when compared to what other countries are experiencing, because now, a lot of their goods and services, like Canada, is going to be hurt in a big way. And they've been really good friends of ours. They've been really good allies of ours. And I think that's going to turn sour for a while.
They've been really good allies fleeting our pocketbook.
What?
Come on, man. Look, okay, I don't want to get into Canada right now, but let me highlight this point.
Shout out to our Canadian friends
that all want to come over here and be American, right? I love Canada.
No, not really.
I love my Canadian maple syrup. I buy it. I buy the Canadian limited edition.
Not for long, buddy. It's going to be $25.
Hey, look. Here's what I can tell you. Look, job creation. It's going to be 20,000 more direct hires for Apple as a result. And it's going to benefit over 450,000 US-based suppliers that are going to benefit from this. So we need the behemoths to make the move, because the behemoths benefit the small guys, right? So look, Moody in India says he's not going to compromise for farmers' interests in Moody. Okay. But what about US farmers' interests? Like, okay, I love the farmers in other countries, but what about our farmers here? Because our farmers get killed by the tariffs too, trying to export. So I just think what this does is this is forcing all of these world leaders to get to the table and let's negotiate. Like, for example, you were talking about Africa and rare earth minerals. I think that opens an opportunity to have a productive capitalistic conversation with the powers that be in Africa, to say, hey, we need rare earth minerals. We don't want to deal with these guys over here. Let's talk business and let's have the numbers here, because before the tariffs go up, no one wants to talk. It's just like, oh, it's America. Let them pay for everything. And that just can't happen anymore, because we're seeing the denigration. We're seeing that happen in America, where America's debt is spiraling out of control. And everybody goes, oh, America's debt's out of control. Well, because we're paying for everything.
It's not the tariffs though, because if you take a look.
No, I understand that.
Because we posted.
I understand that. I understand that. I think the tariffs are the shock. The tariffs are the shock to get people back to the negotiation table to talk, because we need to reorganize this stuff. It's just not, the system's not working the way it was. The system benefits other people far more than it benefits people here in America. It just does. And here's the other reality behind it. Because you said coffee, right? Mm-hmm. Great. Let's see how much coffee Colombia sells without Americans drinking Colombia coffee. I guarantee you a different country is going to see that and go, we'll supply America with all of our coffee beans if Colombia doesn't want to play ball with the tariffs. And I guarantee you people will drink that coffee. Because here's the thing. Good luck without the United States buying your crap, other countries. Good luck. Good luck. We'll suffer here for a little bit. We will. But historically, America finds a way. Just saying, man. I don't know. That's my crazy thought. I might be going on a limb there if it's something, but I don't know.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds, because, again, I'll keep saying it, the facts are just not supporting this idea that other countries are taking advantage of the United States. That's not true as it relates to goods and services in the tariff scene. Now, as it relates to defense, as it relates to military supplies and all of those, as it relates to NATO, I'd be lockstep with you in that argument. But as it relates to the goods and services, it's simply going to be a tax that is going to be imposed on the American people, and they're going to be hurting. So here's the thing. You believe one thing, I believe a completely opposite thing. Guess what? Time's going to tell, and you're going to play the receipts, and either you're going to be right and I'm going to be wrong, or vice versa. So,
hey, have you been watching some Candace Owens there? Show the receipts. You've been watching a little bit of Candace Owens. She says, show the receipts.
I'm not I mean, God bless Candace Owens. I think she's a wonderful speaker, very well spoken, expresses her ideas well, but no, we don't see eye to eye on many issues. So no, I can't say that I've listened to what she said.
There you go.
No disrespect, but just I haven't.
Well, look, if you've enjoyed today's conversation, I implore you to come back and check out some more, because look, we got a lot of great stuff coming on here, but I think we could put that stuff to bed and put a bow on that for now, and we'll see what happens with that, Len. We'll see what happens. It'd be interesting to see. I hope you're right. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm right. I hope you're wrong. I hope it all works out at the end of the day. But look, at the end of the day, it is an experiment, right? We're going to see what happens. We're going to see what happens with that. And it's going to be rough. I think the average cost that it's estimated is the average American household is going to have to shoulder an extra $2,400 or something to that effect. I think that's the temporary pain to gain some long-term prosperity again in America, specifically with bringing back that R&D and that training, right? I think we talked about this, like the amount of money that Apple spent training in China versus that amount of money that could have been spent here training here. And I think if more people saw that, they'd have a different perspective. They go, okay, cool. So outside of that, Len, I'll throw it back over to you to lead us out.
All right. So again, I hope that all of you got some value from two people that have opposing views on many topics, but also similar views on some topics. And we just think that there should be another voice here in the country that is opposing in viewpoints, but still can have a cup of coffee with each other, hang out, and still be friends after a disagreement. And so if that's you, we want you to be a part of this community. Feel free to reach out, comment, tell us what you agree with, tell us what you disagree with. And we certainly are wanting to be open. And as we grow this community, we certainly want to open it up and get to know you better. So with that being said, have a fantastic day. Like, subscribe, and till next time, take care. Bye-bye.
See you at the Olympics.
That's right.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.